Hello and welcome back to my channel, A Girl Named Shasta. That's me. I am back for my third video. I am doing this thing. I'm so excited, still very nervous, but I am doing it. So yeah, I just am loving this, and I'm loving the sweet comments that I've gotten, and it's so great. It's such a wonderful community, BookTube, and I'm so glad to be even just a small little drop in the water that is the amazingness of BookTube. So I wanted to share with you the last 5 books that I have read. I started this channel mid-June, and because I didn't post my videos and held on to them for a while because of nerves, the timing to be able to really have a schedule to how I'm putting out videos didn't quite fall correctly. I have read some really great books through book club. These are all through book club, so they were all chosen for me, and I've had a great experience with them. I do have one that's not so great, but the other 4 really, really good. So we'll get right into it. The first book I read, I don't have a physical copy of it. I actually got it on loan from the library on my Kindle and read it that way, and that is Long Way Down. I'll put a picture of it here, by Jason Reynolds. And this book was for book club. It was really great. It's called YA for Grown Adults, and so that's really fun, and really excited to join that. The group of people in that book club are just wonderful, and they welcomed me in, so kind, and we had a really great discussion about this book. This book is, words are hard to describe it. I know that nothing I say can justify its power and its place in this world as a piece of art. So I will just tell you that it was absolutely wonderful in a terribly heart-wrenching way. It is about a 15-year-old boy who is reeling from the death of his brother, and it is set in a way that is so real. It just feels like the book picks you up from, I was reading it on my couch, like it picked me up off my couch and put me in the story, and pulse racing, reading it as fast as I could just to figure out what was going on. And it is a book that I will recommend to everyone who will talk to me about it. Jason Reynolds does an absolutely phenomenal job. I cannot talk about this book enough, but it's life-changing. I don't think that anyone can walk away from this book unchanged, and that's something we talked about in book club, is just how much it impacted each of us and how it affected each of us as individuals. And I think that this is a book that, one, I feel like no 2 people are going to read this book and come out of it thinking the same. And I also think that, as was very evident in book club, your feelings about the book are going to be based on your understanding of the world. And I think that that is something that the author did so amazingly. The ending is very open, but the thing about it is, no matter how you feel it ends, this 15-year-old boy's life is altered forever, and you feel so connected to him. The book is written in verse, which I had never read a book before that was written in this way, and I think that made it even more powerful. And then something I didn't realize was that the author actually narrates his own audiobook. And so I'm on a waiting list to get that from the library, because one of the girls told me that, and I want to listen to it again. And this is definitely a book I will read again, and I will talk to everybody about it and try to get everybody to read it, because it's that good. It is a piece of art, and I feel so fortunate to have read it. Like it's not something I think I would have picked up if I just would have looked for a book, but I am so happy that I read this book. So the next book is, sorry, my hair, doing a weird bun craziness. The next book that I read is for a book club called Wine About It. And before COVID, actually, I didn't join it until during COVID. So before COVID, they would meet at different restaurants and drink wine and talk about the book. So hopefully that will be back up and running soon, but right now we're doing it solely on Zoom, talking, just having a wonderful time. But the book we read is a psychological thriller, sorry for the glare, and it is called Bring Me Back by B.A. Paris. And this is the first book I have read by this author. I have just recently gotten into psychological thrillers. It was never something I picked up on a normal basis, and I'm just really enjoying it. It's about a man whose fiance, well, I guess she's not his fiance, actually goes missing, and he is the number one suspect, and it flashes back and forth between the time surrounding when it happened, how they met, and then it bounces forward in time to where he's at, and things really start to get creepy and insane, and it's super fast, and I struggled a little bit with the back and forth between the past and the present, and I actually, which I probably cheated on how I read this book, but I would read, it was like two stories kind of going at the same time, but one in the past and one in the present, and so I would read 4 chapters of the past and then 4 chapters of the present, just so I could keep it together. But that's me, and the author was probably not planning for that to be the way it was done, but that's what I did. But it was so good, and I love this cover, even though to me, honestly, it has absolutely nothing to do with the book. It is creepy. I think it's one I would definitely have picked up because of what it looked like. I judge books by their covers. Not people, just books. But it was good. The back says, she vanished, he lied, their secrets won't stay buried. So very, very cool, and a really good read. The ending is not at all what I would have ever expected, and I love books like that. The one thing that was kind of the consensus from the other members of book club was that we didn't feel a super strong attachment to the characters. You wanted to know what happened in the story because it was wild, but the actual connection to each character in the book was a little lackluster for us. I would say us. It was pretty unanimous. And the thing was just at the end of it, you get there and you're like, did I even care about the people in this book? And it's weird because the book was so good. The story was really good, but the characters were just kind of meh. I gave it 4 stars because I read this so fast. I just could not get enough of it because I wanted to know what happened. I was shocked. I was in awe. There were twists and turns, and it was great for a psychological thriller. And I don't know that I had to feel a super strong connection because the story was so fast paced that maybe I didn't need to feel a super connection to the characters. But all in all, I enjoyed it a lot. I gave it 4 stars because I really, really did enjoy it, but I didn't give it 5 because I just didn't feel that connection, which I think could have easily been done, maybe with a little bit more fleshing out of the characters, but all in all, super good. The next book that I read was for book club, and it is called Cup of Crime, and it is a wonderful group of people. I have been a part of this book club for almost 2 years, and we just have a lot of fun. We have not been able to read a lot of crime novels throughout COVID because they didn't do a lot of interoffice, I just got off work, interlibrary loans, which is what they will usually do. They will gather books from libraries across the country, and weren't really able to do that while COVID was going on because they were quarantining the books. They were really taking sanitary measures, and so a lot of the books that we read were from book kits that the library already had, and they already had enough in-house to give out to patrons. And so it had been a while since we'd actually had a crime novel, and this one was no exception. It wasn't necessarily what we would typically read. There was a crime, but it wasn't really the normal for our club. So, but anyways, we read The Reckoning by John Grisham, and this is the first book I have read by him. I've definitely seen his name all over the place and know of him, but I had never read anything from him. And I have this copy, but I actually listened to it on audiobook. And I have to say that this is the one that I did not enjoy. And I'm not one to judge an author on one book, so I'll definitely read something else from him, but this book particularly was not for me. There was a crime, so it fit with the book club theme, but I would say this is more of a war book. It was centered around a gentleman who committed a crime, and it was within the first chapter. I mean, it was like, boom, here's the crime, and then the rest of the book was about his trial, his family, and that was a few chapters. But I would say that this entire middle section here, like here to here, was all World War II. And so that gives you kind of an idea of what time it's set in. And it takes place around 1942. And the whole war is centered around the Death March. I'm going to say this, Bataan Death March. And so as far as history goes, and I did some personal research because of this book, it made me want to know more to see if he was fictionalizing it or how he was kind of treating it. So I did some outside research, and he did a really good job. But I think that this being a crime novel, I wasn't expecting to spend so much time on the war. And he's a very graphic author. I don't know if he is in all of his book, but I felt like as a crime novel, it was not a crime novel. It was more of a war book, and I feel like I wish I would have known that going into it. I did listen to the audiobook, so I sped up the whole middle section because I just couldn't stomach a lot of it. And there were a few people in the book club that did enjoy it because they like him as an author. They have no problem with war stories. But I personally did not enjoy it. I gave it 1 star just because I felt like a lot of it didn't have to do with the story. I think the consensus in book club was that the author wanted to write a story about the Death March and had to figure out how to write a book about the Death March but have a story. So there was more detail than I felt was needed, and the book just kind of went on and on and on and on when I felt like it could have been a third of the size that it is, even including the things that he wanted to include. The ending, for all that the book was and how long it was, I think the audiobook was like 17 hours. I just didn't feel like the story, the plot was enough to warrant everything that was going on, if that makes sense. That probably doesn't make sense, but I don't not recommend it if wartime books are your cup of tea. But I was not the only one in the book club that didn't love it, but there were a few that really liked it, and it really created a great discussion about family, and it's an older demographic in book club, and so a lot of people shared about stories of their family members in the war, and we just kind of took time to just talk about our heroes in our life as far as war stories go, and I thought that was a nice touch, sad, but a very interesting conversation. The next book I read is it's difficult to describe. So I read this, again, this is actually for the same book club as the previous one, Bring Me Back, which is Wine About It. That one was at the end of May. This one was the June book. So like I said, because of timing, I'm a little all over the place, but I wanted to give the last books that I had read. So this is Find Her by Lisa Gardner. And this is actually a book in the middle of an ongoing series with an FBI agent. Her name is Dee Dee Warren. So this is not like the first book in the series. It's obviously pretty far along in the series and introducing a new character into that universe. So it's not the first in that, but it's not the first for Dee Dee Warren's character, but it is the first for the new character. And her name is Flora Dane. And this book was also very, I would say, polarizing as far as book club goes. It was very triggering to some, and so there were several people in the book club that refused to read it after the first few chapters, because there is a very heinous crime committed, and I said in my Goodreads review that it literally gives you whiplash. It is like it hits you within the first couple chapters with just horrible details about the crime that's committed, and then the remainder of the book is the heroine has some things that happen to her, and then she decides, because of those things that have happened to her, that she's going to kind of take things into her own hands. I almost put it down and almost DNF'd it, but there was something about the style of the writing that the author really put a lot of detail into what she was doing, and I felt that she, though very graphic at moments, it was done in a way that was... I don't know what the word is, but it's like you root for the main character, and you care about her. Like, you want to know what happens to her, and you want her to be okay, I guess is the best way to say that. And I'm sure that that's not a very good way to describe a book, but it's the best I can say, because everything is about the crime that's committed, so I can't really say anything without giving a spoiler. But I will say there are a boatload of trigger warnings, content warnings. I mean, there is so much going on in this book. If you have a weak stomach or have any issues with abuse, I would not recommend it. It's very heavy. It's a very heavy book, and the librarian was such a sweetheart. And because there were people that had kind of emailed her and were like, I can't finish this. One girl actually did not attend, which is totally normal if you don't read the book. Some people don't like to go. I often will go even if I don't finish a book, just because I love the discussion. So she really kind of had empathy for the people in the book club and really just let the members kind of take the reins of how the discussion went. And so I thought it was interesting. It was definitely a good discussion about the issues that were in the book, about books and how they're written, and how each person is 100% allowed to have their own opinions about books, and we can still get together and talk about it. And I think that was so interesting. I will probably not read any more from this author. just because I'm not really into super, super graphic descriptions of crimes and crime scenes, but we'll see. I mean, maybe. I might pick one up. I don't know. Anyways, moving on. Last book I read, this was for a book club I've been a part of for about a year now, and we do a lot of different books in this book club. The librarian usually tries to kind of rotate through genres, so he'll do fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, sci-fi, and then I know nonfiction, but like memoir. So he kind of goes from genre to genre. And this one was a historical fiction. It is called, which library sticker, we're finally getting interlibrary loans, which just say ill. But the sticker is so huge. Oh my gosh. Anyways, it's called The Ghosts of Eden Park. And it is a historical fiction by Karen Abbott. I love this cover, which again, can't see because of the sticker, but it's gorgeous. And this actually was bought specifically for this book club, and it was brand new, so it had like that new book smell. And I was the first person to read this book, which has never been the case for library, because usually you get them and they're very well read, which is a good thing. But this was brand spanking new, so it was so fun to read this book. But yeah, it is actually takes place during the Prohibition, and it is based where I live. And so, not to give you my address, but I do live around the Cincinnati area, and this book takes place in Cincinnati and northern Kentucky, in a place I actually have been to many times, which is Eden Park. It's a beautiful park that overlooks Cincinnati and northern Kentucky, and I was not aware of the kind of mystery and legend around Eden Park and the ghost that apparently haunts a small lake, the Mirror Lake there. And so it was really awesome to read and like know the places that it's talking about. But oh my goodness, this author made history come to life. I mean, I was blown away by all the things she did. She was just masterful. So it follows George Remus, who was a bootlegger during Prohibition, and it kind of follows his life and him and his second wife and the life that they have that was over the top extravagant. It's during the Jazz Age. It's during, everything that's happening during this time of Prohibition. It also follows the prosecutor who is after him, and I was trying to see if her name is here. Yes, Mabel Willebrandt. Is this book unbelievable? This author, I mean, she was able to take, I'm sure, look at this. I mean, okay, look at this. Is all of this. Like, okay, look at this book. This here are her notations. These are all of her notes, and she made this into such a wonderful story that you forgot at times that it was not fiction. Like, I had to be like, oh, this happened. These are people. Like, it was so crazy. And she did it in a way that was just so beautiful. She would do above and beyond even what the story was about, because she would tell you the band was playing this song, and this is the fashion, and this was the #1 selling book at the time, and the characters went to a horse park, and she was like, and these were the horses that raced. And I mean, so many things. She did baseball. I mean, every tiny detail in this book was so well thought of, and was just beautiful. I enjoyed it immensely, and I will definitely read anything and everything that she publishes, which is not always the case. And I only recently got into historical fiction within the last few years, but this is so good. And I love the blurb at the bottom. It says, "The bootleg king, the woman who pursued him, and the murder that shocked jazz age America." So if you are into historical fiction, I highly recommend this book. It was so good. So yeah, that is it. That's the last 5 books that I have read. This video went a little bit longer than I thought. So, I mean, out of 5, I didn't really like one of them. I think that's pretty good odds. But anyways, I thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate you checking out my channel, and I hope that you enjoyed this. Just comment below and I will definitely get back to you. So yeah, I mean, check out your local library. They probably have some great book clubs and you will meet some really amazing people. So I hope to get a little bit more of a schedule going forward. I think July is going to be a lot of fun. I have some really great books coming up, and I will definitely be back to share that with you. So I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.